The battle between House Democrats and the Trump White House may be reaching a tipping point this morning as the administration is now openly defying multiple congressional subpoenas connected to the Mueller report, also refusing to comply with demands for the president's tax returns. The House Judiciary Committee is smack in the middle of this, and Maryland Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin sits on that committee, as well as House Oversight, and is a former constitutional law professor. It's good to see you, Congressman. Are you going to vote on whether to hold Attorney General Barr? You are going to vote, obviously, whether to hold him in contempt. What's your vote? And do you think that this vote gets us any closer to the information you want?
Well, that is the plan, to have a vote this morning. Obviously, we'll have discussion of it, and each member will have a chance to weigh in. I would hope that we would vote unanimously as a committee, that it would not be along partisan lines. The entire House of Representatives voted 420-0 to tell the executive branch to release the complete unredacted Mueller report with only excisions made for material that lawfully could not be turned over. You know, in the past, when independent counsels and special counsels have given reports to Congress, it's Congress that's done the redactions. Here we have the Attorney General doing the redactions, or at least pretending to do redactions. In fact, it looks like most of them were made by Robert Mueller himself, because he ended up sending letters to the Attorney General saying, what are you waiting for? Why are you not turning the report over to Congress? We already did the 6E redactions for grand jury material. We already scrubbed it for material that could affect other investigations and prosecutions. So we do believe, as you suggest, that the Attorney General is playing a game. The administration is playing a game. They have not turned over the president's taxes. They've not turned over the Mueller report. They are withholding information from the Oversight Committee. They sued Elijah Cummings just for trying to get material in his committee. Basically, they've tried to pull a curtain down over the executive branch of government, and they are not complying or cooperating at all. And obviously, that's not sustainable in our constitutional system. The Supreme Court has said that we have a right to inquire and to engage in investigations and to get all of the information that we're talking about.
Jerry Nadler was just on CNN, and he was asked about the possibility of Robert Mueller testifying. He says he is less confident now than he was. Is the White House strategy working here?
Well, that remains to be seen. I do think it's a question of political will and toughness on our part. I think that we've got to stand up to these bullying tactics and to this uniform categorical defiance of the will of Congress. Remember, we are the representatives of the American people. And the president's core job is to take care that the laws are faithfully executed, not circumscribed and not stifled and thwarted, and certainly not violated. The president's got to follow the law. But it is up to us at this point to enforce the law through these contempt citations, if we need to do them, and, you know, using whatever other materials at our disposal to make sure that we're able to do our jobs.
There's a lot of conversation about the fact that it's possible that a final sort of decision on all of this could go past 2020, that there could be enough that the White House could do to sort of hit pause on a lot of this. There's a UNC law professor who's quoted in the New York Times and speaks, I think, for a lot of people we've heard from. He said, quote, "A president who refuses to respond to congressional oversight is taking the presidency to new levels of danger. Not responding to that is to literally say you're above the law and you're above the Constitution. There's nothing in history that comes even close to that." I want to reiterate, you are a professor of constitutional law. Are we finding that the system of checks and balances isn't equipped, frankly, to handle the situation we're in today? Where are we going with this?
Well, don't give up on the American Constitution yet, because it has its champions and it has its ardent admirers all around the world. And there are those of us who are going to fight for it every step along the way. Look, the executive branch has disagreed in the past, whether a Democratic or Republican president, about this or that document or this or that witness. That's totally within the stream of checks and balances. But what we have here is something radically different. We have the president telling everybody in the executive branch, do not cooperate with Congress, do not turn over any documents, do not come and testify. And that is completely unacceptable. It is a threat to our constitutional system. And the Congress, specifically the House of Representatives, is the people's branch, and we represent the people, and we have a right to this information. The Supreme Court has said that our investigative inquiry role is central to the legislative function.
But they have also in the past, the federal courts have said that Congress's power is not all-consuming. They can't just do anything that they want to do. So how do you see this falling? And are we setting new constitutional precedents here?
Clearly our power is not absolute and unlimited. On the other hand, in the past, we have always gotten the reports from independent counsels and special counsels. And if redactions have needed to be made for grand jury material or other reasons, we've been perfectly capable of doing it. And we are capable of doing it. And that report needs to be turned over. And certainly the majority caucus, I hope the whole Congress is unified in saying that we are not going to accept this contemptuous defiance of a lawful order of the United States House of Representatives.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.